Mic check, mic check. What's going on? Welcome back to another episode of the KZ Community Beat. I'm your host, Ross Martinez. And the Community Beat, you already know, the podcast where we spotlight the people and the organizations making Peoria stronger and better, one story at a time. Today, we're diving into a conversation that matters, autism. Not just the diagnosis itself, but as the everyday journey of children, families, and caregivers right here in our community. Joining me on the podcast today will be Jinette Williams, the Business Development Manager, and Emily Clark, the BCBA Board Certified Behavioral Analyst of GBC Autism Services, an organization dedicated to improving lives through ABA therapy, meeting families where they are, whether that's home, schools, or here in Peoria at their center. We'll talk about early signs, the importance of reaching out, clearing up misconceptions, and the hope that comes with the right support. So, without further ado, let's get to the podcast. Hi, ladies.
Hello, hello.
Hello, welcome in. So, first off, what's on your mind?
Well, now lunch.
Yes.
You started that.
We were talking about air fryers off the mic. But you know what? Let's jump right into this. GBC Autism Services. What is it? What do you guys do?
We work with children and families with autism. So we work directly with kids and individuals on the autism spectrum. We also support and train their family members on bringing what we do in the clinic into the home setting and various other settings that will be impactful for that individual's life. We serve kids from ages 1 to 20, and we see them on varying levels of time. So some of our kiddos come in for 5 to 10 hours a week, and then some of our kids come in and it is in lieu of school, and so that's where they are best served, and so then they come to our clinic on a Monday through Friday basis and are with us all day. We get to have a really big impact in terms of social skills, daily living skills, quality of life. In what we do is going to follow the kids and families for the rest of their lives.
That right there was Emily Clark, the BCBA Board Certified Behavioral Analyst. Now, Jinette, somebody that I met a couple weeks ago, and we go way back, boots on the ground marketing. And let me ask you, at what point did you get involved here with GBC?
Well, I've been with GBC for 8 years. I've dabbled in all of our different regions, helping or assisting with outreach, but I've really been working more closely with Peoria for probably like on the ground the last year and a half, 2 years, really trying to find where patients are at so that we can make a bigger impact, a more lasting impact in this community.
Yeah, I mean, we met at a job fair. You came right up to radio station's booth. We're out there trying to find street teamers and salespeople. You're like, hey, by the way, this is who I work for. I'd like to get the message out. And immediately it caught my attention. I'm very big on community organizations and individuals that use their resources and skills to build the community up. So why now is autism kind of at the forefront? Why is this something that the community needs to be more aware about, and not just services, but in totality, what comes with it?
Yeah, well, when I came into the field 8 years ago, they were saying 1 out of 64 kids were being diagnosed with autism. Now the statistics are 1 out of 31. I mean, this means that in every classroom, there's probably at least one kid on the spectrum. If classroom size is around 31, it means that families are impacted. They either have personal family members or friends that have autism, and I think it's clearly obvious that it's in the media right now. There's a lot of conversation, a lot of misinformation, just a lot of buzz going on. Schools trying to figure out how to address the needs of students, and people just trying to understand. I think it's just a time where lots of people are asking questions.
Yeah. Emily, let me ask you this. What got you involved? I mean, to be a board certified behavioral analyst, something had to spark that passion. I mean, you're helping individuals through a tough process. And now, as Jinette has talked, in in the world is kind of seeming to be a hot button issue, which can also kind of be alienating to individuals with how people are reacting. But what got you involved?
For me, the first time I interacted with an individual on the autism spectrum would have been high school. They were in one of my classes, and it was one of those like niche classes, so like home ec. We did some cooking, and I got to spend a lot of time with this other student, and it was so cool to me, the just immense interest that he had in everything that we were doing and how he threw his all into everything and was so excited to come to this one class every day that us as juniors in high school were like, okay, we're going to bake this cake and then do
It's
something
another
with
part
it.
of life.
But
Yeah.
he was all about it. And so for me, it was just seeing his passion come to this huge light in this space where high school is hard and this kid was jamming. And so for me, that was my first interaction with anybody on the autism spectrum. And from there, I wanted to know more. I went on to receive a degree in psychology. And with a psychology degree, you kind of have to make a decision when you're done with your bachelor's as to where you go next. I stumbled into the field of ABA. I took one class called ABA and Autism and fell in love that first day of class. And from there, I volunteered. And then I became a registered behavior technician in between my bachelor's and master's degree, and just kind of found this passion I never knew I was going to have, to not only serve others on the autism spectrum, but kids. Anybody who knew me growing up did not expect that I was going to work with kids, but now I do, and it's amazing, and I've loved it.
What did you want to do originally?
I went to college to be, I wanted to be a psychiatrist in supermax prisons.
Oh, wow.
That was my goal. I started out pre-med psychology and ended double majoring psychology and sociology, and knew I wanted to go the ABA track instead.
It's kind of interesting where the world kind of takes us sometimes, where we're not really prepared, but we get called to act and use our skills and passions to help out. Let's start talking about what is autism. Like, what is that? What's it look like for somebody that has never come across it? I'm a fresh plate.
Yeah.
Tell me exactly what autism is.
It's a fantastic question, and there's no one true answer to that necessarily, because there's a saying in our field of, once you've met one individual with autism, you've met one individual with autism. Autism is a spectrum.
It's like a snowflake, where it's every snowflake is a little bit different in how it's kind of constructed.
It's kind of that.
Yeah.
So an autism, like an ASD diagnosis, is something, but then how that presents for each individual with autism spectrum disorder is vastly different compared to the next person. So we serve individuals that are nonverbal, that are struggling to kind of find independence in their daily life, just second to second. And then we serve individuals who are fully vocally verbal, meaning they could sit and have conversations with you and live pretty typical lives, but they struggle with behaviors like aggression or anger management, or just those basic social skills that are going to allow them to interact with new and different types of people in their lives. So autism and how it impacts each person is different across people, but autism at its core is most impactful in the areas of social skills, daily living skills, and then emotional regulation.
So commonalities. There are some commonalities between different individuals.
What it looks like is different. Yeah.
Now, for parents listening right now, now that we're talking about commonalities, are there any early detection signs parents should kind of pay attention to, and why is early detection such a game changer, being able to kind of point out some of those commonalities?
Absolutely. So we are able to, I shouldn't say we, because I am not a diagnostician. I can't diagnose autism necessarily, but there's definitely signs that as a person who's been in the field as long as I have, there's little social skills deficits that you're able to see around the age of like 2 years old that can be really pivotal in terms of when and how you act to then support that kid. that's why early detection is really helpful,
Mm-hmm.
and early diagnosis is really helpful because it mostly starts with those social skills and those babies when they are reaching milestones, seeing any kind of delay in those timelines or those like expected milestones being reached. Those can be a direction to kind of look into, but that's also not even the only way, because we are now living in a world where we're seeing many adults now being diagnosed with autism who have lived in most of their lives
Undetected.
into their 20s, into their
Yeah.
30s, have gone all the way through primary, middle school, high school, even college, and have just struggled through without realizing that there was something more there for them.
Now let's talk about how GBC walks families through the first steps. Jinette, like if somebody calls in and, well, first off, where can they go for more information? If somebody's listening, just wants to contact right now.
Yeah, they can go straight to our website, gbcautismservices.com. There's an inquiry form they can just fill out right on there. Also, all of our phone numbers are on there. If you call the mainline number, you can choose which clinic. We've got clinics in Peoria, Normal, Grosse Pointe, Michigan, and then we also serve patients in-home in Chicagoland and in the greater Peoria and Normal areas as well. So they just go straight to our website. That's the best way to get a hold of us. And as far as the onboarding process, typically, and even on our website, there's a little diagram that talks about the onboarding process. But typically on the front end, we want to make sure that we've got all the appropriate documentation we need. So in order for insurance to cover ABA therapy, you have to have an official autism diagnosis. So usually on the front end, we're going to try and get their documentation that there's an autism diagnosis. If there's not, we're going to give them a list of diagnosticians in the area that have a shorter wait list, because a lot of times doctors will refer you to somebody maybe in their network that has a long wait list, and there are actually clinicians in the area that have shorter wait lists. So if they don't already have the autism diagnosis, we'll refer them over to some local diagnosticians to get that. Once they've got the diagnostic evaluation that's going to be sufficient for insurance, we're going to collect their insurance information if they haven't already given it to us and make sure it's an insurance that we cover. If for some reason it's an insurance that we don't cover, parents sometimes look into options of getting other insurance, or we'll refer them to other companies in the area that maybe take their insurance. So those are the two biggest things that we need, is the autism diagnosis and insurance that we take. And there's a list of the insurances we take on our website, as well as on flyers that we have. Once we've got those two things, then the process goes pretty quickly. We would set up an arrangement with the BCBA to do assessments.
Emily.
They would do assessments, and then they would have like a kickoff meeting where the clinician would recommend how many hours of therapy would be necessary in order to target the things that specific individual needs targeted. Everything is individualized. That's why we've got to do assessments.
It's not one solution for everybody.
No, none of our kids are running the same exact programming. Everything is individualized. A lot of times we're doing like 15 different programs all at the same time, and it's worked into play and activity. So the child could be eating lunch and we're working on a target while they're eating lunch. We could be playing with blocks and we're working on a target. And the target is always going to be something that's specific to that child's growth towards independence. So it could be early learning skills, it could be social skills, it could be behavior reduction, it could be communication, it could be all these different things. But that's all identified in those assessments and then in this kickoff meeting that we have. Once the kickoff meeting happens, then we've got to make sure we've got staff for their team. And once we've identified staff, we'll get them started. And in the backside, while we're doing all of those things, we're also having to get insurance authorization. And so insurance authorization, depending on what insurance you have, it can be shorter or longer. So the process to get onboarded could be 4 to 6 weeks. In a perfect world, you have a good diagnostic evaluation that has everything it needs and your insurance is fast.
In a good world.
Yeah. It could take up to 2 months to get onboarded.
And that's not even just trying to find a place they'll accept you, because I remember you told me off mic the waiting process for services through other people are long.
We're really fortunate because we just brought on Emily not that long ago, so we have current openings. So we don't have a wait list, but yeah, a lot of companies in the area do have wait lists. So You could have the insurance that they take, and you could have autism diagnosis, but if there's a wait list, it could be a lot longer to get started.
Hmm. Now let me ask you this, because I'm not well versed in treatment and all that. I'm just a radio personality that likes learning things. Why aren't the services one size fit all? Why are they more tailored for every individual? And what's the thought process behind that? And what success and metrics have you seen because of that type of application?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good question. I think where that mostly comes from is, so when we think of autism spectrum disorder as a spectrum, there's varying levels of need and varying levels of strengths. So why we individualize our treatment that we provide to each individual kid is based on what they need and what they're already showing strengths in. So for example, if a kid comes in and is 3 years old and is running around playing, interacting with other kids, but when another kid takes a toy from them, they haul off and do whatever it takes to get that toy back. We're going to work on that type of treatment and teaching of finding those behaviors that can be a replacement of those physical behaviors, teaching that communication, and teaching to share those items and interact with their peers in various different ways. Or, for example, if a child comes in and is fully nonverbal at the time, we're going to start with communication and build from there. So what the kids come in needing, because that varies, the way that we respond also varies.
You know, I remember a couple of years ago there was a TV show that came out, and I was wondering how accurate it was to how they depicted it. But Atypical, you ever watched that TV show?
It's an excellent show. It is by far I have said this to so many people actually, working in the field with autistic individuals, it is the show that actually seems to understand and portray autism in the most accurate light, which has been also, in my experience, well received by autistic individuals as well.
Really? Because I loved how they showed the slow incremental growth into the end of the series. And is that also kind of what it's like being in the field, and how you take small wins here, and it's a slow incremental process where you have to have the patience. You have to meet somebody where they're at, and you have to really just have that patience and understanding to help nurture this growth.
Absolutely. Me and the staff, we like to throw a party for those little wins.
Yeah.
If something new or different happens, that kid got that skill, we're gonna not literally cake and ice cream kind of throw a party, but we're gonna be very excited. We're gonna celebrate that win, because every single step forward is monumental, and should be celebrated as such. That it's important to think of what we do as the squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of thing.
Yeah.
We keep going, we keep pushing, because there is no timeline set as to how treatment can be impactful on any individual.
Well, yeah.
In my time, I have seen many times that parents will call and reach out and say, so how long do you think that we'll do this treatment for? And we cannot ever provide a timeline, because it wouldn't be fair or appropriate to do so, because how each child responds to our treatment is different across their needs. And so I have seen times where children are coming in and they are 2 years old, and then they are starting to wean out of our services by kindergarten, first, second grade. But then I've also seen kids who come in at 3 years old and just need our support longer into their life. And then we either transition services to where we're supporting more on the family side of things rather than directly with the kid. But yeah, there's no true timeline, and every little win is big.
How do you have that hard conversation with a parent who they just want what's best for their child, and they may have some ideas that might be misconceptions of, I just want them to be, quote unquote, with respect, normal kid, right? You probably heard that phrasing a couple times. But how do you communicate that to them, which that is also like a snowflake reference, where it's every parent has a different way of receiving the news that, hey, this is a long process. And has there been any struggles and different ways you've kind of altered that speech to different parents, where you can give them that reassurance and be like, no, we're not here just to get your money. It's a process, and you really have to trust it.
Absolutely. Often that is a difficult conversation. Like when we have a family who just received an autism diagnosis and they're coming in, it's very raw. It's very fresh. It's a very hard conversation to have, because we are often the next step after that autism diagnosis, and they're like, what do we do now? And so there is a few processes that occur. There's a grieving process. There's a, I didn't expect this, so I'm now grappling with this change in the trajectory I thought things were going to go in. And so we respond with compassion. We support in whatever way those families need us to, whether that be diving into teaching, whether that be being the person to be there, to be that hand to hold on to and guide them through, or whether it is providing them with resources in the community, giving them ideas of social skills opportunities for the kid in addition to the support that we can provide for them. It's always difficult in my experience starting out those conversations, because autism is a very impactful diagnosis to receive.
It's I think everyone in the room right now, Jinette and myself, we can understand that fear innately that a parent may have, that the child may be left on the bench, I guess one would say. And nobody wants that for the child. We want them to feel loved, respected, part of the community, and never feel ostracized. I do enjoy the fact that you offer services that aren't one size fit all, and you keep bringing up this ABA. So I want to kind of get more into what that is, and is ABA also treatment for the parents as they're going through this, or is it strictly just the child?
Yeah, so ABA stands for Applied Behavior Analysis. So,
Jinette, I'm asking for a fist bump. Thank you.
she was leaving him hanging. So ABA stands for Applied Behavior Analysis. And what ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, is it's a behavioral science. We focus on enacting positive change in the lives of individuals on the autism spectrum by identifying and targeting socially significant behaviors and patterns in their lives. So that's the acronym, to kind of unpack that. And then, we support families at every level. I, on a weekly basis, meet with the parents of each of the kids that I serve to go over how the kids are doing in their treatment that they're receiving. Any types of updates that the family has, because there's also the consideration of like medications and diets and things like that we want to be on the same page for.
Oh, that can also lead to therapy?
Absolutely.
Different type of diets and all that?
Picky eating and aversions to various foods and the textures and things like that is extremely common.
Even in that TV show, there are portions where, I forgot the main character's name, but there's a certain food he would eat religiously because it was comfort to him. And,
Absolutely.
he would love penguins and certain sounds and all that. Okay, I'm on the ups now.
Yeah, absolutely. Food and diet is actually one of the things that a lot of individuals on the autism spectrum struggle with. For example, a lot of the kids I've served in the past really like those, they know it's going to be the same texture, the same taste, the same look every time kind of food. So think chicken nuggets, think the processed foods that are quality controlled down to the letter. There's less of fruits and vegetables because the inconsistency and ripeness can be highly aversive. I actually had a kid that I worked with a couple years back that he loved blueberries. They were his favorite thing in the world. But before he would eat any of them, he would squish them in his fingers to see what color they were. And if they were the wrong color, he'd put it back. because he had learned that a certain
Consistency.
color meant a certain type of ripeness, and he liked those but didn't like others.
I mean, when you think about it, that is, 1-to-1. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like when I look at it and there's a little mold. I'm like, nah, doc. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna put it on the side.
Absolutely. But yeah, so yeah, diet is a huge one. So we can also provide kind of we don't necessarily provide like feeding therapy or anything like that. But we do work with other providers. So like speech language pathologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists.
Yeah.
Feeding would be more of like the speech type of realm.
Ooh, feeding's in the speech realm.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
Oromotor, and it's not specifically only speech, but in my experience, it's been very hand in hand with speech language.
Okay. Never would have thought about that.
Yeah.
That's something new I learned. Now, you guys pride yourselves, GBC, that you'll meet individuals where they are. So what type of areas do you normally go and give services? Is there a central hub in case you do want to bring people in-house? Talk to me about more of the type of areas that people will be able to receive services.
So GBC started 11 years ago as an in-home ABA provider. That's exclusively what we did. And about 6.5 years ago, there were clinics that were closing in Peoria and Normal, and our owner felt compelled to bring them on. And so that's really our first caveat in center-based ABA. And then about 1.5 years ago, we decided to expand to move further north into Michigan in an area where we'll be able to take some more insurance based on how insurance runs in Michigan. So we opened a clinic in Grosse Pointe, Michigan. So we can do in-home ABA therapy within an hour of Peoria, within an hour of Normal, within an hour of Grosse Pointe, Michigan. And we can do the greater Chicagoland area in-home. And then we also partner with schools. We can do consultation with schools, or if the school allows for us to come in with a patient, we can go into schools or daycares. And then we've got our center-based services. So, I mean, basically an hour from Peoria, hour from Normal, hour from Grosse Pointe, Michigan, and greater Chicagoland area, depending on what you're looking for. And I know that Emily already alluded to, basically from newly diagnosed to 20 is what we generally serve. Basically, if insurance covers it, we're able to serve you. We
Good.
don't have limitations. We actually do have one patient that is 26 because insurance has not kicked them out, but that's not typical. So, yeah, that's kind of our area where we're able to serve, and we really love opportunities to do ABA in the organic environment, so being in daycares and schools, in our clinic. And in our clinics, we also have a Caterpillar Autism Learning Center, which is for early learners.
Is that
which
tied
really
with
awesome.
Caterpillar?
It's not tied to Caterpillar. That it's tied to our butterfly logo. Because the caterpillars are the littlest ones that we have, the early learning, and they start in our Caterpillar Autism Learning Center, and then as they grow and transform, they become butterflies.
I like that.
So it's just a tie-in to our logo.
And where is...
We would love to work with Caterpillar.
Hint, if you're listening. We do plugs around these parts. Pay
We'd love
attention.
to do a touch of truck. That'd be amazing.
So where exactly is the Caterpillar Autism Learning Center?
So it is a section of each one of our clinics. It kind of has its own space in the clinic. So it's the same clinic location. It's not like you're going to a separate location, but they have kind of their own reserved space. They have separate supplies there. Their programming is ran a little bit differently. We really try to mimic a daycare or preschool type setting with the intentionality of maybe kids that really need that one-on-one therapeutic care that maybe aren't being successful in a regular traditional preschool daycare. We can give some of those skills and hopefully be able to help to integrate them down the road. That's the goal.
Okay.
And they still get the one-on-one therapy, but it's a little bit more group setting. We do some of the things that they do in preschool and daycare, like in the morning we go over, the day and all that kind of stuff. We have some like, sitting time where you do kind of the traditional stuff that you do in a preschool and daycare.
All right, now let's transition to something a little bit more, a little bit more fun to talk about. These are the opinions of Ross Martinez. I'm about to ask this question, not KZ1023, in case anybody is sensitive with the things I'm about to bring up. With that prefix there, ladies, we've seen the myths being tossed around lately. Prime case, Tylenol causes autism. So I like to transition to have a bigger conversation of what are some of the biggest misconceptions people have, and why it's important to listen to clinical services and individuals who dedicate their life to this cause, that read more than just ChatGPT. Yeah. So, ladies.
I love this topic, actually. So applied behavior analysis itself is evidence-based, meaning what we do is backed by research. We study our procedures multiple times before utilizing them, so that we can act on a scientific basis, because then we know that we can be highly effective, because we've shown to be highly effective. So that being said,
tread water.
We look towards scientific fact.
Yeah.
And we can. And so what is scientific fact is often taken and sometimes spun because of the way that people understand that, with their prior knowledge of research and how research comes about, how studies are driven and what the goal of studies are. So we do a lot of work in guiding families to not only understand autism, because autism on paper is a very different thing than what autism is understood to be in society.
The application of it is very different. Absolutely. Than the
same situation of what can be impactful on not only the quote-unquote cause of autism, but the way in which autism impacts the individuals and others who love them and are around them on a daily basis.
I mean, it comes back to the fact what ABA is. It's meeting the clientele where they are, because one solution isn't good for the next.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are some common misconceptions? Let's not get political, because I don't want y'all to get in trouble for nothing. But what are some generic common misconceptions that you, through studying and application, can just inform anybody that may be worrying right now if they have a child that is autistic, and you could dwell or calm some of the fears they may be having?
Yeah. One of the biggest ones that has always stuck out to me is that there is this fear around receiving an autism diagnosis, because there's a belief that that's an end-all be-all, and that fully changes the trajectory of someone's life, whereas it's oftentimes a door opening up into the type of support that an individual can receive to then continue on with the rest of their lives in a very happy and meaningful and well-supported way. And so that's the biggest thing that's always stuck out to me, is that an autism diagnosis being received and being sought out is not a bad thing. It can be a really, really important, really great thing. And without receiving that diagnosis, there is this barrier of how to proceed and how to move forward, and quality of life is kind of what comes to mind there.
I could throw my personal stuff in there, but I remember, this isn't autism related, but adjacent, when I had anxiety and depression, I remember telling my mom, she was like, "No, you're good. Just go blah, 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 blah." In my community, Latino community specifically, we kind of have this apprehension about seeking services. And what would you say to individuals that are apprehensive about, no, I don't want to stigmatize my child by putting this label on them because X, Y, Z, but as someone who sees the community, is in the community, and helping individuals feel that unification by building community, what would you say to them?
I would do my best to try and provide some exposure to the good in going that path and understanding the variables at play of social skills, communication overall, relationships, and really just doing the best to bring information in a very compassionate, very comfortable way, and never come from a perspective of here's what you need to do, you need to do this. I understand you're not comfortable with it, but you should do it anyway kind of thing. It's more of a the same as we meet the children where they are, meeting individuals on their journey towards autism evaluation, starting where they need to start, and just kind of starting the snowball rolling in little pieces of information and support.
Yeah, it's amazing the services you provide and how you go about things. Now, my point of contact with this all is the Atypical Show, and we've seen the growth in that, but let's bring this more local. Let's bring this more human rather than just TV glitz and glamour. Is there a story that's stuck with you this entire time that you've been helping out with autism? Something that really shows why the work you do matters and why you continue doing what you do?
Absolutely. This is going to be a kind of a plug unintentionally, actually, but
Plug away.
we live in a social media driven world that where the lives of others are very readily available by just getting onto Instagram, getting on Facebook. You can see videos into the lives of others. And there is this girl, her name is Jordan. She is in her early 20s, and she sells t-shirts. And all of her t-shirts have the same logo on them, Be Kind to Everyone. And it was originally started as an autism awareness just project for her. She is a early 20s girl who lives with her parents, and her parents wanted to find a way for her to be able to make money and support herself in whatever way was possible for her.
Yeah.
And so they started out by teaching her assembly line type of skills. So teaching her how to create items and then package items, and then teaching her the process of typing things out and mailing things. And so for her, she created a business that is now a big booming business. And a lot of individuals in our community, ABA community I'm meaning, and those who love and support those on the autism spectrum know Jordan's company, whether or not they know her name. So her story sticks out to me because she started out going through ABA therapy at a very young age.
Yeah.
And she has gone through speech therapy and occupational therapy and all these different things, and she is now a business owner on a very large scale.
Community, hope, and progress.
Yep.
That's what ABA kind of gives individuals. It seems like you're building a community with the individuals that they're helping. They're cheering you on as you have those small wins and pushing you to just get a little bit more.
Yep.
But stay consistent because you're doing great. You're providing hope for families because, before they came to you, they probably had no idea which way to go and what's up, what's down, what's left. And they come to you guys and you help their children get to the next level of understanding and provide them with patience and consistency. It's amazing. Jinette, let me ask you this. For somebody listening right now and wants to...
Can I also tell a patient
Oh, please,
story?
please, go for it.
I actually have a couple because even though I'm not on the clinical side, I'm often in the clinics.
Yeah.
And I'm also just hearing updates. And when you asked that question, it brought me back to one of our patients that was older, a teen, who was working very, very hard at tying her shoe. And I think probably parents thought that's a skill that she would never be able to master. And I remember the day that she tied her shoe for the first time. And the party they had, her BCBA was literally crying when she watched her tie her own shoes. It was a big win, something they worked on for probably a year.
Yeah.
Consistently working on it until she finally mastered that skill. And that might seem like a simple skill to some of us that can tie our shoes in kindergarten. Not that my kids can, because they still need some help on tying shoes.
I have slippers on right now as a 36-year-old
We all
man.
wear just slip-on shoes, right? But I mean, that was a major win for her.
Yeah.
Something that the parents wanted to see her master and wondered if she could. And I've heard other stories of kids who were nonverbal that started speaking, and the parents talking about the first time that their child said mom, something that they thought would never happen. To have that happen, all the work that went into going from being nonverbal to being able to functionally say things and then say mom for the first time. Obviously really heartwarming. And I think some of the stuff that parents take for granted. I mean, kids' first word usually is mama or dada, right? Usually it's dada, but and
I'm a mama's boy. It definitely was my mom. I still call my mom first before my dad. So
we had another kid that was in a contained classroom in school, and mom made the hard decision to pull to do ABA. And while we were doing ABA therapy, we discovered that he was a mathematician. He knew how to add, subtract. He was nonverbal, so we had to use flashcards. We found out that he could do math beyond his age, way far beyond his age. And he was passionate about it. So we were able to grow this passion skill that he had. So it's really exciting to watch this blossom. Something that we didn't even know existed. He had an affinity towards numbers. So just really cool stuff. I could tell way more stories, but it's just awesome to see the growth. And I did also want to note that sometimes when parents come to ABA therapy, they get a little bit of sticker shock in the fact that ABA therapy is a repetitive therapy that takes a long time to see results. It's a high volume. So when you do speech therapy, you might be doing speech therapy a couple times a week for 45 minutes to an hour. ABA therapy, especially on the front end, if you're newly diagnosed and maybe you've got a lot of targets you need to work on, it could be 30, 35, 40 hours a week. And it can take a long time to see progress. As we start seeing progress, we start building in new programs. And as we are more and more successful towards independence, the hours will start to go down. But it's very common for a kid to be getting 30, 35, 40 hours a week, especially maybe newly diagnosed, early learning. So that's something I think parents should just know, that it's repetitive therapy that takes a long time to see results. But when you see these things, still my heart. I can't tell you how many times I've cried.
Trust the process.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a small,
and I didn't
incremental
answer the initial
process.
question I think you had for me.
Oh, I didn't even get into it. I'm more of a heartfelt person, so naturally, organically, when I have guests that have this passion and want to interject, by all means, go for it. This podcast per se is just me being a nerd about Peoria and me finding out the good. I mean, I think we can all agree that the world right now is an interesting spot, to say politely. So if we could find individuals who actively try to do good and have organic dialogue and talk about the passions and the process it takes to help build communities, that's what this podcast is about. That's what this brand in totality is. It just so happens to be a radio station with the nerd for community. Hi, hello, that's me. So I do love the fact that you guys came in today and that we're going to put you guys as part of the November KZ Cares program, announcing that right now. So come November, you'll be hearing Autism Services all on KZ 102.3, just using our platform for good and helping broadcast the message as much as possible. But my question for you was, if somebody is listening right now and wants to take the first step, what's the best way to reach out to you to begin the process of seeing what services you have, how they can help, how ABA might be of some use, and if their insurance covers the services as well?
Yeah, again, just doing an inquiry right on our website, GBC. G as in girl, B as in boy, C as in cat, because those do not come across well. GBC Autism Services.com. Just going on there, submitting an inquiry, or pulling our phone number off of the website and just giving us a call. Pick the clinic that you're closest to, and you'll get to an intake person. And then we can start collecting the information that we need in order to start the onboarding process. And again, if we can't serve you immediately because either insurance is a barrier or you don't have an autism diagnosis, we are going to resource you.
Beautiful.
My degree, I have my bachelor's in social work, and I love resourcing people. And
So you have a heart.
I'm passionate, and always our clinic coordinators, they feel the same. They bleed wanting to resource and help families, regardless of whether or not we're going to be able to serve them. So reach out, and we'll steer you in the right direction.
All right. I got two more questions. One question is there something that we have not covered today that you would like to make the audience aware of or inform them, or something about your services or autism specifically, or the process of ABA? Is there anything left that you would like Peoria and our listening audience to know about?
I snuck it in the last question where I hijacked your question. A couple of things I wanted to talk about.
How dare you?
But there is one thing. GBC has been around 11 years, and we've only been doing in-clinic ABA for about 6.5 years, and part of that was hijacked by COVID, which kind of shut us down and moved us into remote. ABA therapy is a really hard space. There's a lot of competition in this space, and not only that, the field is hard. It's hard work. There's a lot of turnover with staff because it's really hard work. A lot of our workforce could be students, and so they might move, their schedules might change. So that's just a real reality, and then you're going to find that everywhere across the board. And then there's a real high learning curve when you go from an in-home ABA company to in-clinic. And so I think it's taken us a little while to get things right. And just when we think we get things right, we find another barrier that we have to pivot around. And I think the benefit of being a small company who's really driven by quality of services, because we're owned and operated by BCBAs, is we pivot quickly. We try to address things quickly. And so just to be really transparent, I mean, in Peoria, our Peoria clinic has probably had the hardest time, so to speak, with needing a lot of pivots. And we've done a ton of work the last year to really restaff our clinic and renovate our space. We even want to do some more renovations to make it really conducive and be able to provide the good quality of services that our science asks of us, because it's super important that quality is way more important than quantity, and that we really practice our science with authenticity. So it's been hard. We've learned a lot, but we're a small company. We pivot quickly, and we're really transparent and vulnerable about the struggles that we go through as a company, just making sure that we can always keep our patients top. And Emily, you probably have some additional stuff to add.
I do, actually, because so us coming on and us talking about being an ABA provider, ABA has been around for 50 years almost at this point, but it's misunderstood and has been misunderstood for the majority of its lifetime. What I mean by that is there is a common misconception that ABA is doing something other than what our goal is, that kids come to be served by us and end up as robots, or we are very specific and very rigid in the way that we provide our care, and that it may be limiting and not neurodivergent affirming. Mm-hmm. I want to just clearly state that GBC, our top priority is affirmation of neurodivergence and supporting individuals where they stand, and meeting the needs of all individuals on the autism spectrum in whatever way they need. We don't have an agenda. Each agenda for each kid is different, and it's defined by the needs of that child.
Okay.
So we are doing our best in the field of ABA to be the good and continue on in that process.
The world needs a lot of good. I'll tell you that. Last question I ask all my guests on the podcast is, I created this podcast a couple years ago. In college, I saw this thing called the Human Library, where the world has lost the art of dialogue and conversation. And each individual, a part of the Human Library, that sat down at a table with one word to describe their story. A gold nugget, would you rather? Now, for the services you provide and the dedication you've given to autism, what's the gold nugget in this story that you want people to walk away from this podcast after listening to it and be like, oh, that's what I should take from this?
2 words.
Go for it.
Support and empowerment.
Okay. Support and
I
empowerment.
was going to say support and transformation.
Absolutely.
Why those words?
That's at the core of what we do. When kids begin services with us, that's their starting point. The finish line looks vastly different. And so our goal always is to provide the support needed to get to whatever that finish line looks like.
And I didn't want to just say transformation because then that is really mostly on the individual's end. Because really what we see is transformation in our patients as they master goals and as they have more success, they find their voice, they get skills that they need to be more independent. But I had to add in support because it's not just about the individual, but it's about their family. And as a mom myself, there's many times in my life where I've needed support. And so that's a really big piece of it is the support that we provide to our families as they watch their children and teens and young adults transform and get skills that they need to foster independence.
Those caterpillars turn into butterflies.
Yeah.
Caterpillars to butterflies. I love that. As I look at your shirt, you know, these episodes show community in different ways. You know, I think at the end of the day, community is important, something we need to get back to. So a big thank you to both of you, Jinette Williams, the Business Development Manager, and Emily Clark, the BCBA Board Certified Behavioral Analyst over at GBC Autism Services, for sharing their time and their heart with us today. Thank you so much, ladies. I appreciate y'all.
Thank you for having us.
If there's one thing to take away, this is my takeaway from this. It's autism is not a barrier. It's a different perspective. And with the right support, families don't walk that journey alone. You can learn more about our guests today and connect with GBC at their website, gbcautismservices.com. This has been another episode of the KEZ Community Beat, where the voices of Peoria are heard, celebrated, and amplified. I'm your host, as always, Ross Martinez, and thank you for listening. And a reminder, words, community starts with a conversation. All right, we're out. Peace.